You know, when the train is leaving, some people will be running for the train to get the train. And when the train is leaving and Steve sees the train leaving, he will be like, all right, man, I'll take the next one. He's like one of the most relaxed guys I know. And
deep, funky, groovy techno. Just cool stuff, cool shit.
Well, his career is very long. I think he's been doing it now for more than 25 years.
He is a very, very special person, a very, very special artist.
It's like Steve's sound, and that's what you get, and it's always
groovy, and it's always have this kind of feeling like you want to party.
I think most of his records since 20 years, and Steve, I love you.
And he's a very calm but very, very nice person, and he has a deep soul and a big heart, and that's why I love him.
Astronauts is like one of the, I think, the most beautiful pieces of Dutch Detroit techno ever. It's like, it's so dreamy, and it's, I always wonder, like, how do they get the tones, it's like, it's so uncommon. You don't hear them like as much as in other productions. And
this Astronauts track is always with me, and in special moments, I always play it like as last track.
It's one of the most emotionally ridden albums that Dutch techno has ever produced.
Secret Life of Machines re-release, I think, is a great idea to reintroduce it to the new generation who maybe missed it the first time.
He could release this LP again and it would sound as if it was brand new music. Deep and sexy, atmospheric techno at its finest.
Listening back to it today, of the original, you find out that it is still sounding extremely fresh.
In the 80s I had already the skills of mixing and tape editing, and actually found out with this sampling keyboard that I had a really ease for replaying a melody that I heard. It would take me a few minutes to just being able to replay it in the same notes. So knowing that, I was like, oh, I want to produce.
He is a very talented producer. If you look at how many different styles he can do, it's unreal.
At some point I had a keyboard that I bought from, again, newspaper money. And I had an 808 machine, I had a tape deck, and I had a cassette player, so I had to bounce back and forth. For instance, first I would program a beat in the 808. In my head I would say, okay, I'm going to do a bass line now. And in my head I was like, okay, the track is going to be about 6-7 minutes, so for 6 minutes I was playing that bass line together with the 808. When that was recorded, I was recording it back to my other tape, added some strings. So let's say 10 minutes you play this string thing you have in your head and record it, so you have 2-3 layers on top. And then I would do a melody and go back to the other one and record it on top again. Accumulating of course noise and hums and this kind of thing, but that's how I made a track back in the days, because I had no other opportunity until I bought a Atari 1040 ST, the famous 80s computer.
All the tracks he made works pretty good in a club, he makes great club tracks.
I think his music kind of helped me to define my own taste in a way of techno,
Derrick May, I think he was. And they introduced me to him, and with knowing him, I was like almost every week, a couple of times on his doorstep with a new cassette, with something that I wanted to release. And even when he said sometimes no, and this I don't like, that I don't like, I went back home, made a new track, and when I had something new, I was there again. Until he said, yes, this is the one. And then that was in '93, my first Black Scorpion EP on ESP.
Holland always had a very special connection with Detroit also, and I think what Steve shows is that connection. It's melodic, it's funky like Holland, but it's rhythmic and beautiful like Detroit. It's a perfect combination.
Derrick May got to live in Amsterdam, I found out, and I was like, hey, interesting. While meeting him, I was of course using the opportunity by bugging him with tapes and music, and of course the same thing, like the ESP thing was happening. I was just on his doorstep as much as possible with a cassette until he finally said yes, actually.
Steve Rachmad, for me personally, is one of the most important techno artists that Holland has ever seen. Ever since I started buying techno records, I got in touch with Steve through various alter egos like Sterac, Ignacio, Parallel 9.
Most of the styles, most of the names have a slightly different style. Like the ones for Outland record, Rachmad Project was more an easygoing club vibe than Sterac, which was a more deeper Detroit-y techno thing. And then you had Tons of Tones, which was back in the days a bit more club kind of techno thing. And Parallel 9, of course, a bit more dub echo orientated style, and Sterac Electronics, which is more electro, obviously.
Actually, I know him from the early 90s, the beginning of the house music here in Amsterdam, and he used to release music on my label, Outland Records, or Spiritual Records actually, a sub-label of Outland.
But the first Sterac release I did on Dylan Hermelijn's and Sandy Hoener's label back in the days. They were doing it together until Sandy stepped out of it. And for that label I came up with the Sterac moniker.
For me as a person it had a huge impact, and Sandy and I together, like instantly when he sent us a demo, we thought like, this guy is so talented, we should release more of him.
And for me that was, back in the days, a really important techno one. For me that was really my Detroit techno alter ego, which I could do a bit more deeper stuff without thinking too much about it has to be really dance floor. It was just what I really liked to do.
Let's say you're watching a movie and then he hears a sound and he puts the movie on pause, and then he runs to the other room and he goes through his records and he's digging and digging, and then he comes back and puts a record on and he finds a sound in a record from the 80s that got sampled and reused in a film. I mean, the talent that he has in his head goes like beyond.
The 80s inspired me a lot to do the Sterac Electronics thing, and it will always have a bit of a wink to the 80s somehow, machine-wise, style-wise, and maybe even here and there it's hearable in some other things.
Well, I started playing his music maybe about 15 years ago, actually.
I like to hear him play because he has this little thing that he takes you on a journey. It's not like I got to give it all at once. He brings it like that, and he's a real good friend of mine also.
Let's say you make a loop techno thing, or you're really known for this, and you would just make this loop techno over and over. I would get really bored, and that's why I also have music in my blood, and I want to play music, and that's why I also have a different style where I can do a bit more musical things, a bit more emotional.
Steve was one of the, well, and still is one of the key players from this country.
He's, for me, the Amsterdam techno guru, without a doubt, yeah.
I think Steve is, as a DJ and as a producer, to me it's like a huge influence. I really can't explain how big his influence is on me.
One of my big wish lists was, back in the days, Robert Hood's label, Amplant. I was such a big fan of his stuff and of the label. And I was like, okay, I have to be on that label. So whenever I had a track that I thought could fit on it, I sent it to him, and at some point he approved it. And that was for me also a big thing, that I was on Amplant label. It's one of the few foreign guys.
I know him, his music since 20 years, you know, with all the old tracks, Sterac, Steve Rachmad, all this nice Detroit techno from the techno Detroit guy from Holland.
With the Secret Life of Machines album that I mentioned earlier, which was so highly received and still people are looking for it, we decided to not really re-release the album, but I took out my favorites and some that were still useful nowadays, and it's going to be one of the 212 re-releases this year. I made a few new versions myself, which was not really the intention, but because I was going to just slow down a few of them because they were too fast, in my opinion, and I just wanted to do exactly how they were, just slow them down, and I had to really look my old sounds and my old machines, which I all have, so that was all easy to do. We had a bunch of remixers. Dylan and I sat together and decided who was maybe interested to do some remixes, and it's a very big list it became. Not everyone got on it. At the end we have a nice group of people, to mention some, Marc Romboy, Klartraum, Vince Watson, Joel Mill, Ricardo Villalobos, Joris Voorn, Dylan Hermelijn, Christian Smith, Samuel Session I'm still waiting for.
Still now in 2012, his music is still such influential through the whole dance music scene that it has a huge impact then and now.
Still later on, when it got bigger and I got to play it really a lot, it was really the biggest techno thing we had, and of course the coolest building in Amsterdam, and meeting all the DJs there. I met quite some people there. For me, one of the funniest stories I had about Awakenings was that Sven Vet was going to play, and never saw the guy before, never met the guy before. I was walking around there and there were some people from Groove magazine, and one of them was this ABBA-looking guy, a bit of a 70s style hairdo and the pants, and got in a little talk with him, and he was giving me some compliments about some stuff that I released, and it was cool, nice, thank you. And it was 5 minutes before playing time of Sven Vet, and I was like, where is he? He should be around here. So I was looking around to the people, where is Sven? And then at some point I stopped at this guy that looked like Benny from ABBA. I looked up and down, I was like, no way. I was just talking to Sven Vet. Another future project is my residency at my favorite club in Amsterdam, Studio 80. I had a few birthdays that I celebrated there, and the first one was with Collective Turmstrasse a couple of years ago. And this year I was able to get Ricardo Villalobos. It was such a great night that I was like, yeah, this one can never be topped. And then I had the time warp after, the week after the birthday, and we had a back-to-back set together, me and Carotte. And it was again a really magical night, and also one of the most fun gigs I had this year. It was so much fun playing with him. It went so smoothly, and like we did it already for years. And for me, a good opportunity to see all the guys again is of course Amsterdam Dance Event, which has almost all the artists around in Amsterdam. And although time is short, you'll always try to meet someone or to go to a gig of a colleague. Or in this case, 80 Bookings is doing a showcase, which has actually a room with all the 80 artists together, which you also hardly see. You hardly see them all together, or some of them you don't see at all in a year. And because of having more rooms, we could invite another organization to join in and to be one big party family. Hi all, thank you for watching this video and taking the time to listen to all that crap. And look out for the Secret Life of Machines, upgraded versions and remixes being released around. And the rest of 212 as well. I expect to do a lot of new things, so keep looking out for this. Thank you. Bye bye.